This is the Changing the Game podcast, where we share with you the stories of those who are changing the games for themselves, for their communities, and for the industries where they work, through education, diversity, and innovation. Join us in every episode as we take a deep dive into the fascinating journeys of those ordinary people who are doing the extraordinary, from visionaries to operators and everything in between. Changing the Game is proudly powered by Vici Ventures, the venture partners of our corporate clients, VCs and CVCs, connecting industry to innovation ecosystems. Together, we will nurture 1 billion seeds. Get ready to be inspired. Welcome everyone. We're here today for another episode of Changing the Game. So we're here today with someone very special. So Steve Baxter, it doesn't need too much of introduction. So I'll try to make a different take today for us to get to know things that we never heard about him. Well, let's see how it goes. Steve Baxter is known publicly as the Shark Tank programs, a little bit of celebrity stint on that. But let's take a look at that story, see where we go. Steve, it's a privilege to have you. Thank you very much for accepting our invitation.
No, thanks, Wilson. It's all good. Fitful that tonight is the first night that Shark Tank returns, season 5 in Australia.
Here we go.
Yeah, not that we're on it. They fired all 5 of us and got 5 new sharks, which is fair. It's their show. They can do that. I hope it works well because I think it's a great format. So I hope it finds some success. But that's pretty. Just realised that. But I've got a dinner tonight, so you don't record things nowadays, do you? You just watch them later. You just YouTube it or something.
I think so. Yeah.
Template or something, whatever it is. Sorry, I've interrupted you.
Here we go. I'll take a look on that as well. So let's see how the new sharks go, I guess. So, Steve, normally we start this maybe inviting the guests to go as early in their stories to share, things we don't know. So how we know that you were a very early entrepreneur, school dropout, if I read it right. Who was Steve like at that sort of point in time, and what are you motivated to do? What you did?
Yeah, look, Queenslander. I was born in a place called Cloncurry, which is out near Mount Isa, so northwest Queensland. My father was in the railways, so he tended to move around for the next best job, which is great. With lots of small country towns, Emerald in central Queensland, home of the world's best thermal coal, as I like to say, and then Rockhampton in central Queensland as well. So. 15 years old, I was in school quite young, so I was 1 in grade 4, just sort of quite young. Queensland didn't have prep until the last 5 years, so I was in grade 11 at a high school and didn't do very well. I was just a young stupid kid growing up, basically just making trouble, getting into fights and carrying on, to be honest, and failing things left, right, and centre. And the army, luckily, I suppose, took me as an apprentice, as an electronics apprentice. And
that's what you did. You left school to go to army.
Yeah, the army. Yeah, 15 years old, January 15th, 1987, and signed a 9-year contract as a 15-year-old. That's probably worse than recruiting 15-year-olds, is making them sign 9-year contracts. But anyway, and I did a 3-year apprenticeship in Albury, Wodonga, just northern Victoria, which is good. And then moved to Brisbane. Got posted to Brisbane. Did 3 years in Brisbane, and then got posted to Adelaide for 3 years, almost 3 years, and that's where I got out. And I worked on everything from, we did tank fire control to surface to missile systems to medical and dental equipment. I was a radiation safety officer, sort of industrial radiation, quite medical and dental, sort of boring. Just mundane radiation, if radiation's ever mundane. And then when I was in, I used to go away a lot on exercise, and that was quite boring. You couldn't take enough books to read, to be honest. And so I enrolled in part-time university and started doing computing. And there was an obscure topic called Unix, and I downloaded a very early version of the Linux operating system. I've been going for about 6 or 8 months at that point in time. And worked out that you could plug some modems in the back of a Linux computer and become a dial-up ISP. And then I thought, that sounds easy, as every good entrepreneur starts to think that, well, that sounds easy, and it's never as easy as it looks.
Did you think that there was anything about computing or that attracted you at that age?
Yeah, look, I enjoy computing. Well, we did a little bit of computing on my in my apprenticeship, but they were all very sort of 8-bit sort of industrial CPUs, 8085s, Z80s, that type of stuff. But it was fun. I really enjoyed that. And then, and when I was a kid, I had a Commodore 64, and I used to program BASIC on that. So, yeah. No, it was a lot of fun. And so, but this is more system. It wasn't really computer. This is more system administration. This is plugging stuff together, making it working. You know, use a lot of shell scripts, Perl, other bits and pieces to hang the system together. Nice. I did write my own first accounting system, all in Bash script. Just disgusting. You should write nothing in Bash script, if you know what I mean. But I managed to make it work. Launched that business and ultimately sold that business we started that in late 94 and sold that in 2000 to Aussiemail and moved back to Brisbane from Adelaide, essentially.
Interesting. So funny that you mentioned the Commodore 64. So I don't know why, but I remember being a kid that we didn't have too much things at home, and other kids had video games and etc. But somehow I convinced my parents to buy me what at the time was a TK85, which was a Commodore 64, like a processor.
Yeah.
Well, that's when I learned to code BASIC. One interesting thing about you say that I think is very modern, but not too many people realize that the career path is through Defence Force. I have a kid, I have a son in year 12, and he was looking at sort of the career paths that Defence Force allow kids to go through, particularly in the beginning of the career where you're not too sure about what you want to do. It's a spreadsheet, test this, test that. It's still a real possibility as career path, and I don't know if that's only me, but sometimes you underthink how much that bring to experience to the kids and etc. So interesting. I think somewhere in that story, so you start your first company out of your roaming.
The first one was in Adelaide. So we were actually in a rented Army Marine Quarter, and so I installed 14 phone lines into a rented Army Marine Quarter, and people said, "How do you have permission to do that?" And I said, "Well, I didn't ask because I knew the answer, so it was a sort of a pointless conversation." So he just went and did it. And then we moved out of that house and into a sort of more regular premises ultimately, and that went well. We had 35,000 customers, 65 staff. For Western Australia. We're here in Perth, so for Western Australia, it was sort of a business on the same level as IONET. I met Michael Malone quite early there. We formed early internet associations to head off some of the more silly pieces of regular laws and regulations that governments wanted to bring in. It was all around access to about children accessing the internet back then and access to the objectionable materials. There was a conservative government who was pretty bloody conservative. I'm a conservative, but they were pretty bloody conservative when it came to that sort of stuff. And so there was a lot of attempts to sort of shut down access to certain things on the internet, not just here, but also in the US with various bits and pieces. So, I got into lobbying and into politics because of issues like that, essentially. Yeah, we sold that business, moved back to Adelaide, and then caught up with an old schoolmate, and we started another business called Pipe Networks in 2001, and then ended up listing that in the ASX in 2005. And I left there as a full-time executive in 2008, went with Google in California for a year, and then came back when TPG Telecom bought us out, and that settled in early 2010. The offer was in like October 09, and it got settled in March 10. And then became an investor. Really didn't want to start a business again. Although I now run a couple of businesses. In investing, if you have staff, you run a business. You can't pretend you don't.
Yeah.
And I've been, since 2011, we sort of had a bit of a break for a while. I've invested in about 82 companies. I'm saying about 116 rounds.
Is that roughly today?
Well, I've done this. I'm raising a fund in the defence space at the moment, so I had to go back and look at my history. So, and I've actually ad-libbed that because it was when we did the deck in May, it was 78 companies, and I'm pretty sure I've done 4 investments since. So I think it's 82. I just haven't added it up.
I have you say you more know as an investor and etc. A few questions I want to ask you on that journey. But just before I go there, because you mentioned your first company, then you have an exit, sold the company, then you launch another one, and then you listed ASX. So, was there any particular moment in that journey that you realized that that Steve Country Boy become like tech guys successful? Or?
Look, there's seminal moments on a successful business journey. I do recall paying off our house. That was a pretty big moment. that's pretty special, to be honest.
Yeah.
I mean, back then we paid 130 grand for the house, if you know what I
yeah.
mean. It was back in the days when houses were sensibly priced, but it was a 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom house, not like the mansions we all expect nowadays at the same time. So I mean, that was big. It's incremental how that sort of stuff happens, to be honest. I mean, there's little moments along the way when you sell your first business. That's pretty cool. You get that check in.
Yeah.
We sold our first business back before there was sensible capital gains. We got billed full rate. There was no capital gains discount, so we got like 47 cents on the dollar tax on that win.
Oh.
That's just gutting, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely.
But these things it happens quite incrementally, I think, to be honest. So
interesting. So then you start. You went to Google. Oh, Google. So what took you to California?
Yeah. So in 2008, I made the decision to leave Pipe Networks. There was only one job left, and my business partner was a CEO, and he was a good CEO, and he wasn't going to leave that in any hurry. So it's time for me to go. So I resigned first, to be honest. I just wanted to leave the business. And then I was sitting on top of a job offer from years ago. Whenever you meet Google, there's always a recruiter in the room. You always get an email afterwards.
Yeah.
I thought, I wonder if that person still works there. So I hit reply. And said, yeah, because it wanted me to come work there. And they said, oh, you have to have like at least a master's of IT or master's and a minimum bachelor. And I thought, well, I didn't finish high school. I did some part-time university subjects, but didn't finish anything of note there either. So I said, okay. So I figured it'd go nowhere. So I replied, that's cool, but I don't have any of that, by the way. And they said, oh, you should still come for an interview. I said, what? Come for an interview? So I literally went to the US for a week for a day for an interview type thing. So, and ended up getting offered a job. So, and so in September 2008, 3 weeks after Lehman Brothers fell over, we went to the US, went to California and lived in Mountain. We loved it, actually. It's beautiful, with a gorgeous little house we found. It wasn't what it is now, that's for sure. It was only 15,000 people on campus now. Now it's like 60,000 or something, but it wasn't as super woke as it is now, so that was a lot more pleasant too. So, we didn't have any kids, so it was just myself and my wife. And, when we spent a year there, I worked for Google for 1 year and 1 day, as it turns out in the end.
Here we go.
So, yeah, the tax office took issue with that, but, that's life.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Give you enough to have a flavour for Mountain View and the Bay Area, sort of.
Yeah, look, I lived 30 minutes walk from Google campus type thing, so I could walk, and they thought it was weird. They thought we were weird because we only owned one car. What do you mean you only got one car? I said, well, I can walk to work. But why? But why have one car? It just didn't compute in their poor heads. It was funny as.
Yeah.
We were determined to have fun and enjoy it. So we'd go away. Because I only got, for as much as people carry on about the US work, how you work the holidays and vacations and whatever, Google was quite generous. I think I only got 12 days, I want to say, leave a year. As opposed to Australia, you get 20, obviously. But Google give you extra public holidays, essentially. They call them vacation days. So in the end, I was only down, you looked at all the Australian leave plus the Australian public holidays, I was only down 2 days, maybe 3 days a year. There's only 3 days a year less leave, so and so we just made the most of it too. So very good. I got a pilot's license while I was there, and so I'd just go and rent a plane from a local flying club, and we just buzz off for a weekend and go just go. Is
that where your passion for aviation?
Oh, look, I had it before then, but that's where I executed on the passion, you might say. So I fulfilled it and got the license. Palo Alto Flying Club, or West Valley Flying Club at Palo Alto Airport. Still a member there. We just go with plane. We go up to like Glacier National Park for the weekend, or anywhere within about sort of 4 hours flying of California. Just 182 and seeing the little 4-seat single engine aircraft, and just being able to see the US from 5,000 feet above the ground is just so freaking special. It was really, really, really good. I want to go back and do some more flying, but I got a young family now and stuff, and 5-seat aircraft are hard, 4-seat aircraft are easy. So one of the kids loves to stay at home. No. So no, I love it. So
1 year there, back to Australia then. Is that where, because you have that history as well, that story as well, building a little bit of the innovation ecosystem in Queensland, right? So having innovation hub and etc. That comes after? Yeah,
so I did that in 2010, 2011, I started looking around and thought, we had an amazing windfall. The Pipe Networks windfall was quite huge. bit north of $50 million. So you think, like, okay, well, what happens now? So I didn't do anything rash, if you know what I mean. So I tell the story. I didn't want anything rash. I just want to sit back and just, because we'd taken a fair bit of money off the table along that journey as well. So we probably exited about $5 million in pipe over the previous sort of 7-8 years. So we were somewhat comfortable. And so I said, I didn't do anything too rash. So I bought a house on with Sundays and a plane. It wasn't too rash. So I bought a house and a plane, a holiday house. But and then I ultimately I didn't want to run a business again. And so I wanted to be an investor. And so I started slow, and the early investments were small and bad. And they got bigger and worse. And eventually you learn how to do better investments. And any investor's been on this journey would know that, if you know what I mean. So I shouldn't say that. My second investment actually paid off for us about 9 times over at the start of COVID, about 8-year journey. So we actually we did. There was a good one in there, but for the most part they were experiments. And I think the sort of fourth or fifth investment I got tired of doing. DD sounds like fun until you do it lots, and then it's not very much fun, to be honest. And then so I started employing people to help out, and so I built a team, built a family office, and ended up doing more and more investments. And then I realised in Brisbane that the startup ecosystem didn't have certain features that the ones in Melbourne and Sydney, for example, did, and overseas. Co-working space and like a real collaborative, cooperative spirit, I suppose, because these things tend to coalesce around a location as well. And so that's when River City Labs came along. So I looked at options there. I thought, well, how hard can a co-working space be? And we're in a co-working space here, actually, this podcast. I actually came to the opening of Space Cube here back in 2014.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm curious about that, because if you talk about, there was some sort of more vibrancy in Sydney, Melbourne, not so much in Brisbane and Queensland. The same here. So it's Space Cube last year, I think, completed 10 years. So before that, there wasn't much.
I came down. There's a place in the bank vault. There's a bank vault at the back, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So there was a place before this. I came to the opening this one. There was one other place before. Brody McCulloch, who does it, it's fantastic. He does a smashing job for WA.
Absolutely.
And I'd started River City Labs and probably going for about a year before Space Cube. But I just know that you've got to find friends. You've got to find people on the journey to share with and learn and all the rest. That's why when we did the ISP in Adelaide, and I met Michael Malone, and Michael came over to help set up the South Australian Tennis Association, and it was just a case of you could learn so much from people who, you sort of competed with. There was some part of the Venn diagram you intersected with, but for the most part you weren't really competing. I don't know if it was the market was that big, there was still lots to gain, if you know what I mean. And we had a bigger competitor, we had a bigger problem in that space, and that was Telstra. They're a bigger supplier and biggest competitor. So so there was lots more to be gained by cooperating than competing. And I sort of took that methodology, I think, into River City Labs, and just tried to get people to come down and talk. And we ran events, and Brisbane maybe a bit more like my perception of Perth. I don't know if this perception is correct, but everyone in Brisbane sort of had a large house with 3 bedrooms, 4 bedrooms, a spare room, which was the office. So no one really needed a cheap office space. There wasn't a large drive that you might see in Sydney, where all the homes are quite smaller and that's a bit more of a premium.
Oh, that's
and the traffic's crappier, you know what I mean? So so that was harder on a pure real estate play to make it work. So we focused on getting people together. We just tried to, we did events, we did so many events. We did like 700 events or something. I don't know, but Peter Ellis, my GM, she worked it out for me. It was like we averaged like 2 events a week, essentially. So there might have been like a lunch and learn or a startup weekend, so there were different types of events for sure.
Is that when, because you had your family office in your investor journey, but at a certain point you started tenting. So why did you do that, or what's the motivation, and how that journey looks like?
So we were trying to understand exactly how to go forward with, I suppose, the learnings of. So the family office was called Transition Level Investments. We're trying to understand how to go forward with the learnings of that. And I built a team, around it to help me do investments, and they wanted to run it like a business, so which is understandable. And so, how do you do that? How do you run it like a business? How do you incentivize? what do you do? And there's various models out there for investing in startups. And then there's a fund model where you go and raise a fund and then operate it that way. And we could have continued just being a family office and putting more family capital to work. But there was lots of opportunities out there, and we treat the startup part of our family balance sheet as a part of the portfolio, and we didn't want to over allocate into any one sort of asset class or how we determine that, I suppose. And there's asset classes, there's real estate and private equity and all the rest of it. There's also early stage, mid stage, late stage, etc. So, and then we were starting to see startup valuations move from, we were investing on valuations of like 7 to 8 times forward revenue multiples, which is probably back where it is now to some degree. And it was moving to like 10, 12, 13. Okay, so let's get comfortable with that. And so we made that genuine that point in time decision. And then during COVID in 2021, those multiples went to like 30 to 50 times, right? So and now they're approaching single digits, low doubles, which is where honestly bad luck for founders, but investors got to make money too. So probably where they should be, to be honest. But talking about an 8, 9, 10 times forward revenue multiple in a business that hasn't proved itself profitable yet. I mean, hey, get over yourself. It's pretty good money. So so and then we thought, okay, how do we do that? How do we get that money? So how do we get that capital? So we looked at syndicate model. Why? With a fund, you make the decisions on behalf of the fund investors. With a syndicate model, they get to make that decision. You present the deal, they get to decide to invest. And that to me felt like a lot better way to go. And that was how we built that business. And we started with 30 investors. In our first, we started September 19, we started, opened the doors, and just none of the deals are ready to go yet. In the 10 working days before Christmas, we did 4 deals. 10 working days before. And normally the rule in Australia is between Melbourne Cup Day and Australia Day, nothing happens. Don't do anything. It's dead. And we did 4 deals in 10
all
working
subscribed.
days. Yeah, all subscribed. Yeah, I mean one closed after that, but literally we launched the deal on like the 23rd of December or something like that, if you know what I mean. And so they all got done. It was just like, this is never going to work. Like, it's the worst time to launch deals, and there's only 30 investors. Like all the deals just came at once. And they worked. Our investors backed us. And one of those deals was Clipchamp, and that obviously came off like in spades. That returned in 16 months. It returned after fees 4.8 times in like 16 months or something. So
that's cool. So it's interesting that you said, it's against the odds. Launch at the wrong timing, 4 in a row, but you still do it. So it's a little bit of that sort of entrepreneurial spirit when you go for. What about 2 side stories what I want to take? One is you have a little bit of reputation through the TV and etc. Being a little bit more, to the point, brutal.
Well, yeah, we were at a pitch night last night together, weren't we? We were on a judging panel last night together. What did you think of my questioning?
To the point, honest.
Pretty honest, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
It could be less. It could be more rounded at times and a little less acerbic, but the more they piss me off, the anger, not the crosser I come across, you might say.
Perfect. That leads to my question then. So, is the 2 sides of it? What is that stuff that piss you off? Like, take it out. Come on, I'm wasting my time. What are the signs of that? And the other way. So, what is, the key things you see in a deal in a founder that you say, oh fuck, this is awesome.
Yeah, so things that piss me off are executionless pitches, where it's, and we saw a couple of these last night, I think, to be honest, where it's, okay, I need, this is X, Y, Z, this is what I'm going to do, this is what I need, and by the way, I don't actually have the skills, my team don't have the skills. When you invest in me, we're going to contract all this out to somebody else. And I think I said last night, I said, well, I want to invest in another person because you're obviously bringing nothing to this table, why should I invest in you? So executionless ideas I really hate, and it's wasting their own time, they're wasting everyone else's time, they haven't done a scintilla of research to understand anything, right? So that more pisses me off. It actually indicates they're not really that clever, because they haven't just at least researched the audience they're pitching to at the very least. What I really like is just people. So I like confidence. Everyone likes confidence. No one backs an unconfident person. We saw last night Luke from Outlook Industries. I don't know how he's going to do what he pitched he was going to do, but gee, if he pulls it off, it's just amazing, right?
It was good, wasn't it?
Yep, basically, I'm going to take this 1950s, 60s technology, I'm going to repurpose it, and we're just going to rule the world. I'm like, okay. But did it with a lot of confidence. So he had the background. So when I look at people, I said, okay, do you have the skills to pull off what you're talking about? And he definitely had that. Well, he didn't have the skills. He had a large part of his team never had the skills to pull off what he was talking about. And then, do you understand the problem? And he had definitely understood the problem. He put that across quite well. And his solution was, let's repurpose a 1960s artillery piece to try and, take out drones. I'm like, and then every point we put to counter, he was ready and armed for. He came loaded for bear, and so competence. I mean, who doesn't like competence? To me, it's about merit and competence, and it's about the person. That when companies fail, 99% of the time, it's because of there's an unfortunate saying, and feel free to blank this out if you need to, but most businesses die from suicide, not homicide.
Here we go.
Yeah, it's the people inside the businesses that kill them, not the external forces, not the competitive forces from the outside. The competitive forces from the outside chip away, but it's stupid decisions made by people inside that don't react fast enough.
Yeah.
And so that's where...
Interesting you're saying that. I have seen that recently, some portfolio companies that are being, going under, and it's pretty much founders fighting and others internal forces like you're talking about.
Yep.
So that's nice, good. So on your war story, so you mentioned one success. You have a success. You say, yay, we back these people, and they.
I can tell you the ones that I haven't backed. So here's a Western Australian story for you. You want to tell the ones that
you have or have not
that I didn't back. So I was here in I want to say it's 2013. I was talking to Larry Lopez, who's another South Australian, lovely chap, Larry. Yeah. Yesterday, and he started something called the Oz App Awards, and he asked me to be a judge because I had the Riverside Labs going, and I've been over here for the Space Cube launch. So I've been over. And he said, we've got these. There's like 100 entries into this competition. And I came over, and one of the businesses that was also pitching around the scenes at the time was a business with a husband and wife co-founder, and they had a graphic design app called Canva. So I was there when they pitched, right? Oh, sorry, I didn't see the pitch. I couldn't get close to them. Like they hadn't launched Canva yet. They had a scrapbook business before this, and you couldn't get close. It felt like a little bit. You had to be in the in-group. It felt a little bit like Mean Girls at high school type stuff was going on. And I'm sure that wasn't the case because I've heard nothing but great things about them. But to me, it was just like you could not get close because the click was in. And I'm like, well, I left high school for a reason. I left this shit behind. I'm not going to do it, right? Maybe I should have persisted, right, and gone over.
Very nice.
So there's one I missed. But the thing about investing in venture is it's bad when you miss a winner, right? But there's a bigger crime. You were never in the conversation in the first place to even know the winner was out there. So you actually never knew that business was out there looking for investment. Not investing is one thing, and that's a crime that can be forgiven. Yeah, it's still a crime. Not knowing they're out for investment because you weren't networked well enough.
So you're not having access to those deal flows.
Not having access. Yep. That's the bigger crime. Because you can always rationalise a decision. I rationalised a decision when quite irrationally saying I wasn't in the right social set. That's how I felt, to be honest. That's probably an inappropriate characterisation, but you need the deal flow, and that's a war story. How's that? So
that's good. So is that true that you have to invest in 20 to have one champion to play it all?
Well, so I've got 80, 78, 80. So my stats are, and I've done this. It's in my deck. We don't put a great deal to work, and this is a little sound arrogant when I give you the numbers, but we don't comparatively put a great deal to work in this space. We put 18, as of the main numbers, I'll go to the main numbers, it was $18.4 million we've invested in early stage startups. We've had $38 million returned out of that, which is quite nice. Okay. So of that 38 returned, the cost base of that was actually $4 million. So 4 of that 18 returned us 38. The remaining 14 million has a valuation of mark-to-market valuation of 66. It's even after the tech wreck right down to the last sort of 8 months, to be honest, and which is brutal. It was worth a lot more than that before we wrote it down.
What is the secret? It's a lot of due diligence sort of thing, or
what's the
secret to have that sort of performance? It's a great performance.
Yeah, it's 29% IRR, cash on cash. I mean, they're not including expenses because we do our family office does a lot more than just that. So it's almost impossible to break it down through expenses. Well, you could, but it'd be hard to reach a genuine number. So that's 78 businesses to get to that. So and of that $38 million, those wins probably came from 5 businesses. Yeah. So the vast majority of those, and I'd probably say that out of the 78, I would say that maybe sort of 55 are less than 5 years old, and it's a 2 to 10 year investment game. So most of these have been in the last few years.
No.
So we don't really expect an outcome for at least another sort of 2 to maybe 7 years for most of those anyway. So, there's lots of ways you can cut and dice that portfolio, to be honest. So.
Fantastic, Steve. Talk about deal flows. Thinking one opportunity that we had to have you here in WA. So we talk about, what about WA ecosystem? So I'm intrigued with that because I live here. I love this place. When we look at the innovation ecosystem and all deal flow and as a capital allocation, etc. So it's a shame that for now, so it's too small. So I heard before that today the deal flow is not enough for many players. Right? Okay, so we assume that is true, and if we want to do something about it, so what do you think it could be?
And I hear lots of people who have lots of solutions to fix this, and I think that I've been reasonably stable in my approach to this over the years and in my answers to this. It's people sort of say we don't have enough Series A, or we don't have enough Series B, or we don't have whatever it might be, or IPO, and it's like, well, it all starts at early stage. So you don't fix a pipeline halfway through; you fix a pipeline at the start, right? So you need to put lots of early stage companies into this pipeline. So you need lots of early stage investors to be backing lots of early stage ideas. So I met Charlie Cunningham yesterday, and he's working now for Invest WA or whatever the state government investment startup arm thing is, and he's an awesome bloke. He does great things. But he told me there's now 3 ESVCLPs working out of Perth.
True.
Which is awesome, right? So that's a great start.
Yeah.
But you have lots of investor incentives such as ESVCLP. You have ESIC, which is a great investment incentive, 20% tax on the way in, and get your own tax advice. 20% on the way in, and CGT free on the way out, and there's a few other limits. So you need to maximise those investment platforms in order to get more things invested in. That's for sure. So. But yes, you need deal flow. You need to work on lots of deal flow. You shouldn't preference bad ideas halfway through a pipeline. It will never finish well. This stuff should naturally flow through the pipeline.
Yep.
And it's just nothing but hard graft. You're in a small market, as Brisbane was, and probably still is, to be honest. You are blessed and cursed with an amazing resource extraction industry, right? So when things are good, people sort of don't unfortunately take the long-term view of saying that these things go in cycles and we should invest now. So when the mining goes, as it does in a cycle, over time it goes down, we'll have something else in there. Those conversations only tend to happen when the cycle goes down, unfortunately.
Too late, huh?
Yeah, so too late, exactly right. So, but you need to keep chipping away and keep sort of saying, okay, if we're going to have something for when iron ore falls $20 a tonne or whatever the hell it might be, right, then what happens? So you need to start chip away at that and just convince people it's right. Well, I come from Queensland. We've got massive extractive industries, and unfortunately we have a government that hates them at the moment because they've people's perceptions of what that does to the environment. So, but we also have some other irons in that fire too. We also have gas, and we also have coal gas. We have a whole bunch of stuff up there, to be honest, as well as agriculture. So.
I'll ask you a question with an agenda, right? So because of my background and our business, so we look at corporate and how can we serve corporate, how corporate can serve, the ecosystem sort of thing. So with that comes some sort of assumptions that, corporate can do more on this, or not corporate can do more of this. There is an opportunity that we connect better with corporate and corporate venture capital come along and etc. Have you had those conversations? You think, what the role of corporate in early stage in venture capital?
Corporate venture capital, alongside universities, can be some of the biggest wet blankets for innovation that exist in Australia. And people say not all. I said, yeah, I agree. Not all universities. So maybe 1 out of 40 doesn't do that. And then not all corporate venture doesn't do that. Yeah, maybe not 1 out of 20 does that. They are there to assist their own corporation through things. There's some corporate VC that does well. Like I would say that Microsoft's M12. They reward their people as a financial VC, and they don't make decisions on behalf of Microsoft Corp. They make decisions on behalf of Microsoft M12 Ventures, essentially, who's the venture arm. And you've met M12 obviously on our trip to on Jetstream, yeah. So boring. I loathe them. I shouldn't say this. You're going to get back. You know, they weren't the most.
Okay.
I'll stop it there. So corporate it's enticing. Like you'll have large corporates who want to participate with a big heart. They just don't know how to do it. The larger the corporate, the larger the organisation, and all the more bureaucratic.
Yeah.
The worse they are in innovation.
Yeah.
We spent a lot of time in Queensland with Riverside Labs trying to get, and there were some great corporates there who helped, who really tried to help. POQ tried to help. In the end, that they, very few others now. I think Suncorp did a bit of stuff, but it just went nowhere. I don't know if it was net accretive. I truly. There was a good program called MEX Accelerator, which is mining.
Yep.
Something.
Engineering, technology.
Yeah, it was called MEX Accelerator,
Science,
and they actually did a pretty good job, to be honest. And they actually went to industry. They went out to the various miners, and they actually brought real world data and problems back. And they got a whole bunch of mining young graduate engineers and mechatronics people and did.
Yeah.
And so the hackathon scene is actually a pretty good way to do. I think with all this activation, there's nothing really serious comes out of a hackathon, right? They can, but for the most part, not usually ever. But it activates a whole bunch of people, then go and do other stuff, and it gets them thinking. So it's that background. There's a whole series of things you should do. You know, co-working spaces are great, events are great, hackathons are great. The events like West Tech Fest is great, and they all assist to build what you need to do. And you can take a couple away. That works better if you do them all, and you just need a long-term, literally 5 to 10 year approach to this stuff to build that capability, to build it, and then you'll get like a Canva who unfortunately, they were Sydney based anyway, I believe. They just came here to get funded. Yeah. In Brisbane, we have a business called Tanda, Time and Attendance. They've unfortunately not taken any investor capital. 4 young QT grads doing great, but there's other. In Brisbane, we also have out of Townsville, we have Safety Culture. Unfortunately, they've mostly set up their office in Sydney. And there's some others. So we're getting some wins on there as well. I'm trying to think of the other business. They've got a lot of venture funded businesses there at Brisbane starting to really sort of pick up their pace. Yeah. But it just takes time. It's like, I'd say we're a fifth along the way where I'd like to be. And I started this journey back in 2011. So, maybe in 2040 we might be where we need to be. That'll
Very
be
good.
A bit sad to think about that thing going.
Yeah. So I love it. So look, I'll go for a last question just for you to for us to wrap. So and respect our listeners, I guess. So you now venturing in the defense force, so Beaten Zone. So nobody, if you do a picture of what Beaten Zone is, but also why are you doing this? Where it comes from?
So I had my first job was my first full-time job was as a soldier. Did that for 9 years. I went to telecoms, got out, became an investor, got some momentary fame from the Shark Tank TV show. There's a chap from the army approached me who ran their drone program and said, "Hey, we do this innovation program with a whole bunch of things. Can you come along and help us do some PR around this event called Army Innovation Day?" I said, yeah, I can do that. And it was at ADFA in Canberra. Went along, walked in, and swore I'd walked into James Bond's weapons lab. And I thought, what the devil? And I just could not believe I was allowed to look at all this such cool tech. And then I noticed there was people taking pictures and putting them on LinkedIn, and I thought, well, it's obviously not secret. So, and then my next question was, where are the other investors? And I said, oh, we don't trust investors. And I said, well, I'm here. And I said, well, we trust you. And I said, well, you just met me, so maybe you shouldn't do that. And why is that? And I said, well, we don't want private money coming in. And none of it made any sense. It was just a public service attitude. They all had the right heart. They just didn't quite know how it worked and how private capital can be used to take a lot more bets a lot faster. And to get to an outcome better. And it'll leave a lot of destruction behind it, but it does get to an outcome. And so I thought I'll try and change that from the inside. Saw all this amazing technology and capability that was being developed, and the conversation really didn't go anywhere. And I thought, well, I'm not going to let this get away. I want to go and start investing in this space. And so that's where Beaten Zone came from. On that journey, I saw that lots of parts of the community didn't treat defence technology entrepreneurs as they should be. They were, especially in the financial services space, they were often denied bank accounts, insurance, credit cards because they built dangerous things, and dangerous in inverted commas. And I thought, well, I want to help normalise the defence industry. So the term beaten zone is a beaten zone is the area of the battlefield where all the bullets land. There's more lethal places you can stand, but not very many. So we're about normalising what these businesses do. They produce lethal hardware for angry men to protect our nation. We don't ever want to see them used, but we need them in case we need to use them. So I just wanted to normalise the conversation around that.
That's fantastic.
So that's beaten zone when we back sovereign Australian businesses, increasing capability in lethality and survivability. So lethality is to do with the weapon, but it could be the training system, the aiming system, sighting system, the weapon, the ammunition, logistics systems. Yeah. And survivability is turn that coin over, protects us from their weapons. So we're all about enhancing our ability to defend the realm.
Very nice. Steve, before we go, so I'd like to thank you because in my journey as an angel investor, so I had the luck to cross 1013. So through the work that your team is doing 1013, I ended up getting to know the Bay Area for the first time. So 2022.
It was a good trip.
Good trip and opened up my mind so much. So much so that I went back to the Bay Area and enrolled in Stanford sort of course and etc. So to a good extent, you want to be blind. So I have all these ideas, crazy things, but I love it. I'm loving it, and thank you and your team for that. So thank you for visiting Perth to bring your passion to the Defence Force. I was there in the event yesterday, and I love it. So completely out of my domain expertise, so still have lots of fun learning and and taking a look in the entrepreneurs trying to get their way around. I met fantastic people yesterday, so it's quite interesting. So thanks for the time with us. So I'm sure you in the audience will love this. So it's a very unique persona. So someone that's definitely leaving a legacy behind. So, and I appreciate. Thank you very much for being with us.
No, thanks very much. Well, just always a pleasure to meet genuinely lovely people. So, and everyone in the forget this right, Vichy.
Yeah, Visagio and Vichy Ventures.
Sorry,
So Vichy Ventures.
Vichy Ventures organisation. Obviously, we shared that plane ride last year. I want to say it was a lot of fun. So,
we did. We did that trip February this year.
Was it this year? We won it. That's right. The auction was last year, wasn't it? We did it this year. That's right. Yeah, we did it. I offered a charity auction and flight my aircraft to a restaurant just down at Coffs Harbour from Brisbane, and the Perth crew came over and we had a great day. We visited some charities and had a ripper of a day. It was good.
Yeah, I think it was one of the best days of in a lifetime for many of the people in that trip. So yeah,
it's a lot of fun. Private aviation is a lot of fun.
Thank you.
Ripper. No worries.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Changing the Game. We hope you enjoy learning about the unique journey of today's guests and the valuable insights they share on education, diversity, and innovation. Remember to keep following your passions and never be afraid to think differently and challenging the status quo. Don't forget to subscribe to our show and follow us on social media for more inspiring stories and valuable information on corporate innovation and innovation ecosystem. Special thanks to our partners, Vichy Ventures and Visagio, for making this podcast possible. Thanks for listening.